Sustain267.
Welcome to the introductory episode of Sustain267. My name is Pato Kelesitse and I'll be your host. So a little on me, I wear a couple of hats, Vice Curator of Global Shapers Gaborone Hub, and I'm the Regional Lead for Global Shapers Steering Committee on Environment and Climate, and I'm a member of Resilient 40, which is a collective of African youth voices on climate change resilience. I'm also a climate reality leader trained by former Vice President of the United States, Al Gore, in 2018. And I'm a master's student studying development studies. The motivation behind starting the podcast was to communicate climate change, because I believe we can't solve a problem if we don't know it exists. So we'll be looking at what is it, how does it affect us practically, how it affects our quality of life, our daily routines, and yeah. In addition to that, we'll be looking at what can we do to solve it or to beat it or to live alongside it. So we'll be considering mitigation, resilience, and adaptation, the three buzzwords. In the first episode, we'll explain their meaning, and the content we'll be looking at is stuff like the Botswana National Determined Contribution, which will also be explained in the first episode, the Sustainable Development Goals, primarily Goal 13, which is climate change, but we'll also be touching on some of the other goals, like Goal 2, which is zero hunger, Goal 3, which is good health and well-being, Goal 5, which is gender equality, 12, which is responsible production and consumption, 15, life on land, and 17, partnership for goals. The idea is to share information so we all work together and we're motivated to partner to address climate change so we leave no one behind. See what I did there? I'll mainly cater for Botswana, so for a Botswana audience, then for our African siblings on the continent, and then the globe, because as we all know, this is a global issue. And the reason for this target market is because there's a lot of information on Western countries, their solutions, their stories are shared a lot on media, and we start to think their stories are also our stories. Looking at sub-Saharan Africa, we only contribute 5%, but will be the worst affected in terms of the effects of climate change. And if you look at the global north, they contribute significantly more, but they won't be as affected. So there's no way that our solutions would be the exact same. This is an attempt to increase Botswana and African voices with African experiences on climate change and increase the information available and contribute to what is already there, but now coming out of Africa. There's an interesting report that I came across by Afrobarometer, which shared a couple of numbers pertaining to Botswana and climate change literacy. Only 51% of Botswana have heard of climate change, according to this report. And awareness is higher in rural areas at 61% than in semi-urban areas at 46%. And lastly, in cities at 26%, which I found a bit surprising. I would have thought it would be the other way around, with all our access to information in the city and our social medias and Wi-Fi everywhere that lets us go on different websites. Then looking at the gender divide, women at 52% are more likely to be aware of climate change than men at 42%. And finally, of all those who have heard of climate change, only 60% said it was making our lives worse, and 58% agreed that it should be stopped. And I'm with the 58%. I'm bringing the conversation here being the podcast that you'll play in your car or you'll play with it while you're cleaning, because I feel climate change is too diverse, it's too widespread, and it's too pervasive in our lives and existence to only be discussed in boardrooms and at conferences and at workshops with graphs and complicated jargon and ties and suits. I feel it's a conversation that should be had in homes and in public transport and with our friends, on our WhatsApp groups, because it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It should be spoken about in a language and with vocabulary that means something to us and that makes sense to us. With that being said, that's what we'll be attempting to do with the Sustain267 podcast. A fun fact for those who didn't know, 267 is Botswana's dialing code. So the name of the podcast essentially is Sustain Botswana. Please get in touch, like our Facebook page, Sustain267, put up a post. I'm looking forward to the conversations we'll be having, looking forward to engaging with Botswana, looking forward to engaging with African voices around the globe and across the continent.
Sustain267.